Welcome to the Short Rod Show. This is episode number 4. You got Ben here.
And you got Brett.
Thanks for joining us, guys. We're really excited to have you. Today we're going to be talking flashers. Last episode we talked a little bit about how to get by without using flashers, and we thought it'd be a great idea to talk about how to fish effectively with a flasher. So that's what today's show is all about.
Yeah, it just kind of flows right into it, I think. But before we get into that, we've got a few housekeeping things we want to talk about. We've had a few updates and things from previous episodes.
Yep.
So last episode I talked about that GPS DNR file structure that you could download off of their website, and I was incorrect when I said a KMZ file. I went on their website the other day, and it is a GPX file. Doesn't make any difference. You still do the same deal where you download it off their website, you drag and drop it into your My Maps, and you're good to go. It's just look for a GPX instead of a KMZ.
You got everyone's hopes up trying to look around for a KMZ.
Well, I would have felt bad. Yeah, oh, what the hell is this?
Good deal. Good deal.
Yep. And then also when we were talking about buying cheap stuff off Facebook, and that I was wanting to upgrade my auger situation into to use my drill, clam plate, and Strike Master 7-inch auger. I picked up the 7-inch auger the other night on a Facebook purchase. Went downtown, picked up a 7-inch Strike Master hand auger, $40.
$40.
The guy said he's only dug maybe 10 holes with it. So I was like, well,
that's amazing.
Let's run it. Well, yeah, I told you when we were out there.
Deal with them, right? You just
no. I was like, dude, yeah.
$40.
When I messaged him, I'm like, hey, I think $40 is a very fair price. When can I meet you to get this?
Perfect.
And then when I got there, and then you know how we were talking about, I've never seen anybody run a clam plate and a K drill. Sure shit. There's a clam plate and a K drill sitting on that guy's garage wall. He loves it. That's why he didn't even cross his mind to put the Strike Master on his clam plate. That's
such a perfect setup, having a laser auger.
Yeah, that's what I asked him too about, always having to lift it up and push it back in. And he's like, yeah, I rarely fish over. He said he rarely fishes over a foot of ice anyway.
So he's just fishing Central Iowa, basically.
Central Iowa stuff, takes the kids out.
Yep.
So he's on pretty nice days. Yeah. He's not doing anything too hardcore. So I think that's a pretty good setup he's got for him.
I don't know about mounting that K-drill on a clam plate, though. That seems kind of overkill.
Well, it's probably safe enough, if his kid runs it or something like that.
That's true.
That K-drill doesn't jump out. I don't think it's got a point, I'm pretty sure, on the tip, so it doesn't jump around a bunch on you.
Yep.
So.
Yep. And then I made a purchase.
Yeah.
This last week.
Pumped.
We were talking about the plastic storage a little bit, and ended up finding the perfect answer through our friends at Widowmaker Lures. They came out this year with their new plastics wallet, and this thing is just perfect. It's pretty substantial.
Yeah.
I was picturing just like a standard size wallet when I looked at it. Got it in my hand right here. It's good size. So it's
how many you got in there? How many?
I have 15 different kinds of plastics.
And you could easily add more. It looks like you could add at least, 5 or 6 more?
Yep, it holds
bags?
It holds 20 bags.
Holds 20 bags.
I'm holding 15 right now.
You could put 5 more in there.
Noogies, micro noogies, wedgies, jumbo wedgies, spidgies.
Like Ben said, he is hooked on Little Adam Bait Company.
They have my full support.
They have your full dollar.
This fits just perfectly. Throw it in your tackle bag. Yeah. So, I'd like to see what you guys have for feedback on that, but go check it out, widowmakerlures.com. They have a really good deal right now on them. I don't know if that's just their normal price, but they're $9.
Yeah. And the only thing I could see ever failing is maybe one of those bags, the resealable part goes to pot on you. But what, $2?
$2 and you're back in business.
Yeah, you can buy a whole new pack.
Yep.
So
yeah, coming up after this break, we'll talk flashers with you. Stay tuned
for the Short Rod Show.
Hey there, guys. If you've been over to our website at shortrodshow.com and like what you see, you should get in touch with our partners over at Evergrow Marketing. They're a digital marketing agency that specializes in landscape and lawn care businesses, but they also work with guys like us. They can help your business show up on Google and help expand your digital footprint. To learn more about the Evergrow team and how they can help you get more customers, visit them at evergrowmarketing.com. Tell them Ben and Brett sent you from the Short Rod Show podcast to get an additional 10% off your first bill.
Ben and I really want to thank our fans for helping the Short Rod Show really take off. You can find us all over the internet at shortrodshow.com. Please sign up for our email list so you can stay up to date with every podcast. Also, you can find us on Facebook, Short Rod Show, and anytime you get a chance, hit that star number 5.
Welcome back to the Short Rod Show. Glad you're here and made it through the break with us, and we're talking flashers.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about what we have to start with.
That sounds good. First things first, we got a couple Miller Lights here. We're going to open those up.
It's going to be a long episode, maybe. Got the pints.
The pints. So, different flashers. Brett, you start off. What kind of flasher do you run?
Yep, so I've mentioned in previous episodes that I run my open water unit, which is a 698 Hummingbird. It's their old style before they came out with the helixes.
Yep, the squares.
So what I ended up getting was like an ultra, you're never going to get this deal twice sort of deal. So what it was they were already on sale. Because normally I never would have bought this thing. Because it's got side imaging, it's got GPS, it's got the whole 9 yards. It was on sale for like $350. And there was a $175 mail-in rebate on that.
Seriously?
Wow. So I was like, yep, I should have bought all their stock. That's what I should have done. But so bought that deal, then mounted that on the boat, playing with it, noticed it had a flasher mode. So I was like, oh, well, hell yeah. We'll put that. So what I did was I had an extra little mount that I borrowed from Sean because he was throwing away his old Hummingbird, or his old fish finder. So then it happened to just mount right on there. So I was like, sweet. So I bought that mount. I bought the deucer and a power cord. I cut a little circle out to mount that stuff, and I bought that'll fit into a bucket, and then I bought just a Hummingbird soft shell.
Yep.
So yeah, 100% homemade.
Like a wooden carrier. Is that what yours is?
No, the carrier is just the shell. There's a handle that's kind of in the shell.
Okay.
The only thing that's wood is that base that I screwed the base. Cool. And then I zip tied a lead acid battery on it that I bought from Fleet Farm.
Yep. It works good.
Oh yeah, that thing's money.
Yep. So I'm running a little bit more advanced setup.
Not made in your garage.
No, but highly commercialized. You guys have probably seen it. The Markham LX6 on a lithium shuttle, on the Markham lithium shuttle. Got the lithium shuttle last year, and just can't say enough good things about it. It is cool. Just having that extra power capability, not worrying about running out of battery, run it all day, a couple days, run it.
Well, and the mobility of that thing. I mean, it's just grab the handle and you go.
Super light, away you go. Bought the LX6, I think, in 2012, which is about right after it came out, and I've never had any issues with it. It's been really reliable, done all the updates that Markham has. Of course, the last update, I think, is from 2016, so they're not releasing a lot of new updates for it, but it's really dialed in.
So you bought that brand new, right?
Brand new.
So what made you buy that over, say, some of your other standard ones?
So originally started out with a used LX5.
Because this is an LCD unit.
Yep, digital series. The LX5 was great.
Yep.
But really just hard to see. You know,
in the light?
Just
daylight?
Just hopping around. No, not in the daylight. It's just really small. The display is just small.
Gotcha.
As far as like resolution and seeing fish, it's just a little bit on the small side. So, what really caught me on the Markham digital series was just being able to update it.
Yeah.
And they were throwing out updates like every year back then, you know, with this cool new feature, this cool new.
So is it really that much different than when you first bought it?
It's a little bit, yeah.
Or maybe you don't remember, but
no, there's more. It's the actual sonar portion of it is a lot better, where they fine tuned in your gain. You used to have like open water mode and ice fishing mode,
okay,
and the gain curves were all screwed up.
Oh yeah. We'll go talk a little bit about what gain is. So
yeah, gain would basically just be your resolution, how much of your signal you're actually reading as it's coming off the flasher. So we can get in a little bit about how flashers work, but basically it's a little bit of magic going on inside there with some sonar technology that's way above our heads. But it's putting out a signal to the bottom, a little clicking sound, and then that's getting read back up through your transducer too, showing you where the bottom's at, where fish are at, where your lure's at. And gain is just a way for you to fine-tune that. If you have too much gain, you're not going to be able to see anything because all of your there's too much feedback, basically. Yep. You're reading too much. So you dial in your gain.
So you see a lot of clutter on your dial.
Clutter,
you can't see. It's just all colors and flashes, and you can't see anything.
Yep. And so that the gain curves that they came out with are gain 1 and gain 2, and it's roughly along open water and ice fishing. But turn mine on and see where mine's at here. But basically, the new modes that they have on here, it's similar to when it was new, but really, for how these work, you really don't need to update it past what they have here. I don't know what they might come out with in the future, but yeah, really nice setup. The super bright screen, you can read it in daylight, no problem. It's flat. That's another big difference between a regular flasher, mechanical flasher, and a digital series. Would be that flat display. You can read it from a lot of different angles.
Yep.
Of course, now with Vexilar and Markham having their brushless units and more of a flat screen there, that looks a lot better too than
and I realize you got your lithium shuttle now, but back in the day, the big concern was over those LCDs were battery life. That those things would just eat your battery so much.
Yes. Where
your standard flashers that would hum at you all day long just use quite a bit less power.
Yep. And they could you could run a whole day on a standard flasher. When these came out, like an LX6 was actually, and the reason I got the LX6 was the screen's a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
For the setup that I had, I didn't need anything that big.
I don't know. Is there that much of a difference between the 6, 7, and 9? Like as far besides screen size, so like feature wise.
Yeah. So the 9 is actually a 7 still, but the 9 has a camera.
Oh, that's
the difference.
Right.
But the 7 is the screen is probably a third bigger.
But it's just bigger. Is all.
It's just bigger.
Yeah.
Yep. Otherwise, the features are all the same. They claim it has a little bit better like target separation.
Yeah, that's just because the dial's bigger. You can see in between them.
Yes. Did a little bit better resolution on the screen. But really, like target separation, I've never had an issue seeing, especially your jig having a bait on it or not having a bait on it.
You can tell.
I can tell.
Yeah.
That's so cool to be able to see that. Ooh, did a fish bite your waxy off?
Yeah. Almost to the point where you like if you get one that pulls your pants down, pulls your plastic down.
Yes.
You can tell.
You got a little bit more of a stout mark
the
there.
return is just a little different.
Yep. And all what we're talking about here today is just being out on the water, staring at your flasher screen, and seeing how.
I mean, a lot of this.
Fish.
If you're a new guy, last episode, by the time we got to it, and you were convinced to go buy a flasher, a lot of this stuff we're talking about today is it just takes time to stare at the flasher.
Yep, that's the main thing. Get out on the water.
We're not going to get too much into settings or anything like that because all different brands and different water depths and clarities and
bottom content, everything.
It all just makes such a huge difference that you can't get into settings too much. But talk a little bit about bottom content now that you mentioned that. Returns, how can I tell the difference between hard bottom, soft bottom?
Yeah, so a lot of people don't know. Just looking at the bottom content return of your flasher, you can tell, is it rock, is it mud, is it sand?
Is it weeds?
That's
a big one.
Yep. So really that comes with some experience, but also just messing around with your gain settings to be able to tell that.
Yep.
If you have a really hard bottom, say it's just pure rock, you're right over
or sand,
rock or sand. Rock is going to show up really, really crisp. It's going to be red. Return is just going to be red. Yep. There's not going to be anything poking up around anywhere. And that's really how you tell for rock. For sand, it's going to be a little bit of a weaker return.
But it'll still be pretty strong.
Still be pretty strong. Yep.
Yeah. So then what, I hear a lot about these double returns. How do I know when I got that? What's that mean?
Double return, that's good. That's looking at the space below the bottom on your flasher screen.
So it'll look like you have two bottoms. What it looks like on your
Yep.
flasher screen. What's that mean?
Yep. That's where you can really read your bottom content even more. I'm pretty sure that's just where it's picking up a second return. If you have a really hard bottom, you'll get a lot clearer second image than if you have a real soft bottom. Like a mud bottom.
Yeah, what's that look like?
If you turn your gain to the right setting, say you keep turning your gain up and you kind of see the bottom, but not all the way, that's a good indication it's a really soft bottom.
Yep.
Your sonar's penetrating through and not just bouncing right off right away.
Yep.
So
sticking with signal colors and strengths and stuff. So how do I know a strong signal? Like, so you hear it a lot of times when you're watching these YouTube videos or whatever. Oh, I got a big signal, big mark.
Yep.
How do I tell what a big mark is versus a small mark? Because a lot of times it's not just this big red bar that comes across. It's something in between.
And it's tricky because sonar works off of, it's not like a camera looking down your hole, seeing everything that's under there. It works
Yep.
off a principle of how far away the return is from your transducer.
Yep.
It affects how big it shows up on the screen, and then also how big that return is.
And it's a cone.
And
You
it's a
gotta.
cone.
That's
Yep.
to me. That was an epiphany that I had, was when you realize that what your transducer is shooting down is not a straight laser straight down. It's making a cone shape. If you can imagine your hole, the tip of that cone, and it's just going down at an angle. And a lot of them you can adjust that angle.
Yep.
But
Yeah, so cone angle. can be
understanding
changed,
that
but,
you're looking at a cone.
So getting back into just size too, if the initial setup is critical when you set up your gain, say you're in 20 feet of water, okay?
Yep.
You want to set your gain so that your jig shows up as maybe 1, maybe 2
It's the
lines.
smallest mark, but you can always see it.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep, you don't want it fading in and out.
Yep.
You know, if it's floating around off to the fringes of your cone, you
Yep.
want to adjust the gain up so you can see it all the
And that's
time.
something I always do, every day. At least when I first get out there,
Yep.
is drop that jig down, or if I change jigs, if I change the size of jigs.
Yep.
If I go from
Keep
a big
adjusting.
spoon,
Yep.
I'll drop my gain, drop the gain down so it's just a little, blue, and then if I switch to a jig right away, a lot of times you can't see that jig because it's that much smaller. Then you got to bump your gain up a little bit to see that jig, but you always want that. Usually that's my measuring stick of where I want to set that gain is.
How big
Where
your
can I
jig is.
just see my lure?
Yes. Yep, that's perfect tip.
Because I don't want to catch a fish smaller than my lure, so anything that's smaller than that doesn't
Exactly.
matter.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm not here to catch plankton.
Yep. Perfect. So once you get that dialed in, then that's where you can kind of tell. Once you start seeing bigger fish come in, they'll show up as a wider mark.
Yep.
But they'll also show up with more of a strong signal inside of that band. So maybe you're seeing yellow on the outside and red in the middle. That red band gets bigger as
That
the
means
fish
it's a
gets
fish.
bigger. Yep. Because it's actually reading the void in their swim bladder.
If you're curious about what colors mean, whatever color that bottom is, if whatever mark is moving that you think might be a fish, if it's that same color, that's definitely a fish.
Yes. Yep.
If it's not that same color, it's probably still a fish. It's just kind of skirting outside of your
you're just
cone,
you're just
or
barely picking it up.
it's not coming in. But
Yep. But that's a good opportunity to start jigging differently, start rattling them in, calling them in.
Yeah,
and
because
see
you will
how it
see some
reacts.
noise sometimes on those flashers that will make you scratch your head and
Yep,
annoy
especially if
you
you're
a little
fishing
bit.
around other people too with
Yep.
flashers and get some interference and be able to tune that out is good too. But we're talking like cone angles and the cone shape coming down. The Markham Digital series has this little graphic on here that
So you
tells
can
you
see.
exactly how much of a cone on the bottom you're looking
Really?
at. Oh yeah, in whatever depth of water you're
So
in.
it just tells you the radius of it? Or
Yeah, so right here-
circumference.
Right now, it's in a simulator mode, but 24 feet of water, I'm seeing 8.4 feet of a
Oh.
cone. So if you switch your cone angle to 20 degree, or sorry, to 8 degree, this has an 8 degree cone and a 20 degree cone. Now I'm down to 3.3 feet.
Dang, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah,
I didn't know
just
they
shows
could
you
do
a little-
that.
Just a
I
little
didn't know it
graphic
showed
of
you
it.
that. That's pretty
so,
cool.
roughly, I think it's a third. If you take your depth divided by your cone angle,
And that's
I
what you
don't know.
get.
That sounds right.
I don't really
I'm getting
think about it, to
3.3
be
feet
honest.
and 24. So.
Oh, your demo's catching a fish right
Oh,
there.
yeah. Pretty cool. Yeah, so cone angle, there's Vexilars and Markhams, you generally have about the same cone angles, but
Yep.
really the more options you have with cone angles, the better. But if you're only fishing in 20 feet of water or so, or less, you just need one cone angle. It's
Yep.
not really going to make that much of a difference. Really, cone angles are for if you're fishing steep drop-offs, and say you're on a drop-off where 2 feet away from you, it's 20 feet, but then 3 feet on the other side of you, it's 25 feet. You can get what's called a dead zone,
Yep.
where it's
it'll-
only picking up the closest reading,
Yep.
and fish could be hiding in the shadows.
that
underneath.
happens a lot if you're fishing big boulders.
Yep.
If you're fishing like
Yep.
Volkswagen Beetle size boulders on Stony.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's perfect for trying like an 8 degree cone angle and just getting a real thin beam going down.
Yep.
To be able to zero in and see all those fish.
Yep.
Yep.
So settle the debate for me, Ben. What's the difference between a Markham and a Vexilar? Because looking at them, aside from the LCD screen,
Yeah.
they're very similar.
Yep. So they're
deals.
So Vexilar doesn't have a pure LCD version yet.
Yep.
They have their FLX 28, which is
The Mac
the
Daddy.
Mac Daddy of all Vexilars, and guys just love the heck out of them.
Yep. And for rightfully so. I mean, they got a lot of versatility that really, I'm not advanced enough in a flasher deal to really even use half of those features. But when it comes to actually features for a true flasher, that FLX28's top of the line.
Yes, pretty cool. So an old guy told me a long time ago at an ice fishing seminar the two different philosophies of Vexilar and Markham. So Vexilar, of course, they've been around, 60 years now? It's their anniversary, I think, coming up.
Nice.
They started out using really highly tuned receivers. So your transducer is sending a signal down, and the receiver inside there is very highly tuned. They don't have to put out a lot of power. So you'll see Vexilar and Markham go back and forth on how many watts of power they're putting out.
Yep.
Vexilar puts out less power. But I was told their receivers are all a lot more sensitive than Markham.
Yep.
So basically they're putting out a little bit of power and then amplifying that to the max to be able to read the bottom and your jig and all that. Markham is putting out tons of power and has a less finely tuned transducer and receiver, to where they're picking up, less than all the power they're putting down. But the net result is the same.
Yep.
I mean, performance-wise, you could argue with people all day about what's better. They still all catch fish.
Yeah.
They're still 100% better than not running a flasher, seeing your jig in the water versus where the fish are. So,
yeah, it just comes down to price.
Yep. Don't let that scare you.
Preference.
Yep.
Quality-wise, they're all going to they all last forever.
I think Vexilar's got an edge on Markham for reliability and quality, though.
You think?
Yes.
I guess I don't know. I don't have a lot of experience with either one.
I bought a eBay Markham and had to send it in to get the motor replaced.
Yeah, what was your experience with that?
So that was a really cheap, pawn shop eBay VX1 Pro, and bought it for $130. Ran it for I don't know, a month or so.
That's a good deal.
And
no wonder it broke.
Yep, it broke.
Yeah.
Yep. Just all of a sudden, lights only turned on at the top and never got.
So I mean,
anything
customer
else.
service is pretty important to me. What'd you think of your Markham experience?
Good. It was good. It took about a week, I think, to get it back. This was in maybe September, October time frame. Couple.
So
years
when
ago.
everyone else is sending their stuff in too.
Yeah, I mean it was a busy time for them.
Yep.
I think they had a deal for $90, a flat rate repair fee.
No matter what the problem was.
Kind of cheesy.
Yeah.
If they put a power switch in it and it costs them $4, you're still paying $90, which is kind of sketch. But so I did that. I've pretty much figured out it was going to be the motor that was bad. Just reading online and
so you got your $90 worth then if it was the motor.
Well, I sent in the transducer too, and they said, "Hey, send it all in as a set. So you don't need your battery, you don't need your shuttle, anything like that. Just send your Markham in and have the transducer with it." And they actually test both.
Yeah.
When they tested my transducer, it was bad.
The deucer was bad.
So the new transducer, they sent a new one too. So transducer is like $100, motor's like
so it's basically an overhaul.
$50.
That's what you got out of that.
Oh yeah. So it should be good to go for a while now. But yeah, that was $90. That's still a good deal.
So what I'm picking up is you're pretty pleased with your experience, customer service experience.
They did good. I was just frustrated that it actually failed because.
Yeah,
you hear about guys talk about Vexilars just running for 25 years.
Forever, yeah. But you don't know what kind of abuse that thing went through.
Oh, yeah, it was from a pawn shop.
Yeah. It could have been sitting outside. It might have been picked up in a raid.
Had a rough life.
Yeah.
Yep. But, yeah, Vexilar, I haven't had much experience with those. I guess I've just stuck with Markham through my ice fishing career, but it's treated me pretty well. Having a backup is handy now.
Yeah, it is.
I always take that with me just in case something happens.
Yep. So now there's a new wave of flashers coming onto the market where you're talking more dual purpose.
Yes.
Kind of the stuff that I've bled into a little bit.
Yep. The Helix.
What are your
Helix
thoughts
series,
on that?
The Garmin's.
What do you think?
If I didn't fish with you all the time, I'd be buying one.
Yeah, you'd have a Helix already.
The lack of mapping on the Markham is hurting a little bit.
To me, that absolutely put fish on the ice this past winter. Was having that mapping.
Yep.
I mean, you go to a lake like Brushy, where it's just an endless sea of trees in that water. And I mean, how do you know where to start?
Yep. The lake bed on the north side.
Yep. So yeah.
That's where we started.
So what it is I can walk around and I can see. I got my GPS location on my unit, and I'm walking out there, and I can be like, all right, well, this tree is near a break. Well, this tree is on a flat. And you can kind of understand, like I mentioned in previous episodes, where multiple forms of structure come together. And that's where I think that mapping really came in clutch. And you can really see where the creek bed flows also.
Yeah, that creek, the creek
a lot
channel.
of fish that roll in that creek channel.
Yeah,
sometimes it get a little sketchy on the ice, but
Yep.
It's definitely thinner right over the top of that creek channel.
Yeah, it's still flowing. That's for sure. Yeah, just like what we talked about last episode, just being able to mark spots.
Yep.
You know, if it's DNR spots, being able to see where they're at and see where you are in relation to that versus guessing.
Yep.
Or even, like, what do you think about Navionics on your phone? Have you used that?
No, I've never used it. I've always had since I've been introduced into the world of lake maps, I've always had a Lake Master chip in my Hummingbird.
See, and I've used Navionics once, and I actually bought a couple map packages.
Some people love it.
And it was not accurate. I don't know if other people have had problems with that.
That's kind of all your lake maps. I mean, none of them are 100% accurate. I mean, yeah, they get pretty darn close anymore, but there's still lakes that aren't real well mapped.
I think the GPS was off.
Might have been.
I don't know. Maybe you have to pay a lot more to actually have your GPS accuracy pinned down.
No, I mean, your phone is maximum going to be 10 feet. That's going to be the best day you've ever had on your phone.
But a Hummingbird will do better, right? Than 10?
I'd say 10 still.
Really? I was thinking more like 3 or 4.
Mm-mm. You got to start paying quite a bit more money to get 3 to 4 foot accuracy for GPS.
So it's just a finer receiver?
It's not the receiver at that point. It's what satellites you're pulling from. And to get finer than 10, a lot of times you got to start paying for it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's come from the ag world anyways.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're doing wrong. We need to pay for some good satellites.
Well, yeah, I
Get
mean,
down
at
to
least in
3
the
feet.
ag world, a lot of guys, you're running off your free stuff, and that's what we run off, your phone runs off of, and that's what your Hummingbird and stuff runs off is WAS and GLONASS, and that's all free, and that's 10-foot accuracy. You get any more or less than that, and you got to start paying for satellites.
Dang, what does that cost? We should look into that.
Not worth it.
If this podcast takes off.
10 foot's close enough. I can cast wherever I need to go. Yeah, if this podcast takes off, if the Russians are listening,
Yeah, no kidding.
we could use a sponsorship to get better satellites.
That's awesome.
But yeah, getting back into this new world of Hummingbird and Garmin coming on with
Yeah.
a lot of their stuff.
The live view.
I'm pretty excited about that.
scope.
What I like about the new ones anyways, I think Gen 2, maybe Gen 3 Hummingbirds, is they got that little bubble. So as we mentioned earlier, as that fish is kind of outside your cone or on the edge, your return signal's lighter, where the new Hummingbirds will do like a little bubble instead of a flat little flashlight.
Oh, okay.
They'll have a little bubble, and that bubble will get bigger as that fish comes closer underneath your deucer. So as that fish comes in, the bubble will get
Oh, wow.
bigger. So you'll still see the bubble moving up and down around the dial, but if he's on the edge, it's just a little pin. And then as he gets closer and closer, that bubble gets bigger and redder and redder.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
So
I think that's pretty sweet.
Gen 2 and Gen 3.
I'm not sure which one.
Yeah.
It's one of those two. I've never actually used one of the Hummingbirds, but I looked real hard at buying a Helix 5 this year. But
Yeah, and I mean, for the money, it's all right in that same wheelhouse.
Well,
If you're talking expensive flasher, Helix 5, Helix 7.
you can buy the Helix 5, that all-weather one, for like, with the GPS for like $500.
Yep.
And you're two-timing it. You're running it open water and on the ice.
Yes, that's huge.
That's big time.
Yep. Run it for both. Have all your maps saved.
Oh yeah.
Back
Well,
and
then you can
forth,
use your
open
same.
water to ice fishing.
Well, all the rage now, and what all the pros tell you is go out now while the water's open, and go mark all your ice fishing spots. Go find the fish, mark where those fish are at. Come back when the ice is on there, and get on them again.
Cool.
So you can do that with your open water, and then ice unit. So now that we have fish, we know what we're looking at on the flasher. How do I know what that fish's mood is? I mean,
Sure.
you get down there, you're jigging at them, and the sucker will just stare at you. Can't. It happens countless times where the thing's just staring at you. How do you know what to do? Do I do a different jig cadence? Do I need to change colors? Do I need to change plastics? Or do I just need to change completely the whole bait?
Well, kind of what I look at and my strategy, what I do with it, is first make sure you're jigging above the mark, okay? You have to, we're
good
talking
tip on
about
there.
cones
Nice.
and different distances. People don't understand a lot about how a fish could potentially be, 2 feet away from your jig, but it's going to show it's going to show about at the same level of your jig.
Yep.
It's just going to be further away. So that fish will actually show up below there. So you always want to have your jig be above the fish mark.
Yep.
Okay. So if you're jigging right at the same level, the fish could potentially, you could be below that fish. He could be off to the side 2-3 feet and 2 feet above your jig. And you're not even...
And the fish's eyes are always on the top of his head.
Yep.
He's not looking down very often.
Yep. So that's the first thing. Make sure your jig is always above the fish. And a lot of times I'll see guys make that mistake and they're jigging right at the same level and the fish isn't reacting. That's usually why.
So describe to me a situation where you would be like, oh, I need to change baits. Like if you see a fish act a certain way.
So if you see a mark come in, maybe off the bottom, and he's coming up and you're jigging, doing your thing, and he comes up to it within maybe a foot and darts away and just he's out, that would be a good time to change. So,
change lures.
If that's a really good mark, say you're targeting walleyes or crappies, and that's for sure a good mark, and you see him come in and turn away, maybe that was a bluegill. Bluegill comes in looking at your big crappie bait and is not interested in the way he goes. So
then how do I know what kind of mood would the fish be in if I just need to change color?
That's a tough one. That's a judgment call.
Yeah.
To
me, I guess maybe I trapped you a little bit. To
just
me,
a little bit
is when the fish comes up and stares at it for a while.
Yeah,
but he won't take it.
And won't take it.
Because that means he likes what he sees. He likes the profile, but there's just something off about it. So it just needs a subtle change at that point. Maybe, maybe the last fish you caught, you forgot to reset your knot.
Yes,
to make sure that you're horizontal.
If you're dangling at 45 degrees, it's going to come up.
Maybe that's what he doesn't like.
And say, whoa, that doesn't look right.
But maybe it could be a color also.
Yep.
That's much more of a subtle change to me. Like if it's just a subtle, like he's looking at it, but he doesn't know if he wants it, that requires a subtle change. It's when you mentioned earlier, when they come up, look at it quick and take off again, then that means they whole new bait.
Yep, just start over. But really, without having the flasher, you would never see that interaction. So that's really, we're getting into the fine-tuning, the fun part of fishing and actually going from just catching a few fish here and there to actually being successful and seeing how fish behave.
And we could talk about that stuff till you're blue in the face, but really to understand what those interactions mean and what you're looking at, that just takes time on the water.
Yep.
And I think what at least this podcast, I'm hoping, conveys at least to the listeners is get you an idea of terminology and give you at least a good starting point on what you're looking at and what to think about as you're moving forward.
Yep, definitely. Really, if you find someone that you can go out fishing with, Brad, I'm out fishing with you all the time, but you taught me all kinds of tips and tricks that I wouldn't have had any idea about before.
Honestly, I've learned so much just doing this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Just talking with each other.
Yep. Learning something. Season hasn't even started yet.
Yeah.
We haven't even
it's close.
Yet. We're getting close.
I might have to eat a little crow. I called around Christmas time.
I said December 10th, and we're really coming up on it here.
Yeah, I saw Stan's Bait and Tackle up there in Okoboji. They said, was it Lil Gar iced over?
Oh, geez.
Yeah. I'm talking
no time.
Des Moines. We have to actually be able to get on water in the Des Moines city limits. Or Polk County.
Oh, so going up
I'll give
Nevada?
You Polk County. That's when first ice is.
Yep.
No, that's not Polk County.
That's Boone.
That's Story. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Hey, don't be giving away that spot.
All right. Enough said.
You got to be a man about it to walk out to there.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for joining us, guys. We had a really good time on this podcast. As usual, we'll keep her going and have some more good topics for you. We're hoping to get a few guests on as well to talk ice fishing with us.
Yep.
That'll be coming up.
On the Short Rod Show.
The Short Rod Show.